and I typed helicopter pilot job, and I stopped going to college like 4 days later. I was like maybe 6 or 7 weeks away from getting my associate's degree at a community college. And I was like, hey, to my parents, can I go be a helicopter pilot instead? And, they were like, yeah, sure, if that's what you want to do. Hey, this is Dylan.tent with Sotheby's Realty. I'm here today to give you a little inside look in how we represent luxury properties throughout the state of Michigan.
Dylan.tent is a top realtor for Sotheby's Realty.
His unique approach of combining home sales with his passion for extreme sports has made him one of the most in-demand realtors in luxury markets across Michigan.
His uncompromising approach to life and business earned him $50 million in home sales last year alone.
And, we jumped a motorcycle over a house. And it got, went viral. And
looking back on your life, man, do you think homeschooling was a benefit? Was it a negative? Is it something it was a benefit?
You get taught how to think, not what to think. Day 1 of the lockdown, I drove up and rode my motorcycle. Day 2 of the lockdown, I landed my helicopter in the backyard of somebody's house for a listing appointment. It was like, I'm not going to pretend I'm sick when I'm not. I really got my Twitter account permanently deleted before Elon bought it back. My Instagram was shut off multiple times. My Facebook was threatened to be deleted. I had to threaten to sue Meta to get my stuff back.
And was that from your COVID comments, or what was?
Making fun of Hunter Biden, that was what got me banned from Instagram.
So let's talk about the DC thing, because that's recent. It just happened in the last week or so.
It was a training flight, and the tower had made sure that the people had saw the plane. They verbally confirmed it with them twice, and they weren't looking at the same plane as the one they hit.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Bulldogs Podcast. I'm James Danley. Today we're sitting down with a very good friend of mine, Dylan.tent. You might know him online as the Helirealtor. He's a good friend of mine. He's sold over $300 million worth of residential real estate over his career over the last handful of years. He's an avid outdoor enthusiast, does a ton of exotic sports from riding motorcycles to snowboarding to Ironmans, triathlons. He lives an adventurous and an epic life while making a lot of money. It's a pleasure to have him and tell his life story. Dylan, what's going on, man?
Not much, James. How you doing today?
Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you as well.
So for people that don't know you, you built a really good residential real estate sales business, right? So you've developed a niche where you handle a lot of the luxury estates in Michigan that are in more rural locations. You've taken your history as a pilot, which is a very rare niche in and of itself. 0.1% of U.S. population has a helicopter pilot's license. And you're able to fly to a lot of these estates and sell them throughout different parts of Michigan. And you built a great business, man, a great brand around it. And now we bolted on some other companies. You and I own a title company and a mortgage company together. And throughout that entire process, you've lived like an epic life. Like out of all of our group of friends and buddies, you're like constantly riding motorcycles, going snowboarding, doing crazy stuff, doing races, winning titles. And it's a cool and interesting lifestyle that I think most people probably envy and are like, how the hell do I, as a young man, build a life like that? And so I'm excited to have a conversation today and kind of talk about your roots, your background, your values, and what has led to the man that you are today.
Sounds good. Well, it's kind of, there's a lot, but, it's kind of fun. Originally I was homeschooled until 8th grade, and I would wake up extra early. I'd get all my schoolwork done before 10, and then I'd get to go to the skate park. I had season passes to the ski hills, so I'd go to Mount Holly, Alpine, Brighton. I did a lot of mountain biking. When I begged my parents to get into motorcycle riding, and they didn't want to do it because they said I was going to get paralyzed. And, it's like when Bart Simpson on The Simpsons, he's sitting there trying to wear his dad down to buy him something, and he just keeps nagging him. I did that from 6 to 11 until they caved. And then once I turned 15, I started signing myself up to go to races, even though I didn't have a permission slip, pretending we were 18 and going to racetracks. And we got really deep into motocross racing, which led to, road racing. I raced a Ducati for a local Ducati team, and we won a regional championship doing that. All the while, I ended up quitting college to become a helicopter pilot because I wanted to be a heli ski pilot.
Oh, hell, it's ski pilot. So you want to be able to fly the guys up and drop them in the mountains to ski and snowboard.
Yeah, so I was watching a Red Bull movie called The Art of Flight. It's a heli ski movie. If you haven't seen it, it's really good. But in the first 5 minutes, there's this blue Red Bull helicopter that lands on the top of a mountain on one skid, drops off some guys, and then it does this very aggressive, slow motion turn and just hooks right down the mountain. And I typed helicopter pilot job, and I stopped going to college like 4 days later. I was like maybe 6 or 7 weeks away from getting my associate's degree at a community college. And I was like, hey, to my parents, can I go be a helicopter pilot instead? And, they were like, yeah, sure, if that's what you want to do. And so I got all my ratings, my private license, my commercial, my instrument.
So wait, you didn't even finish the 6 weeks of community college? You just bailed?
No, I wrote an English paper one time. Actually, technically, somebody else wrote it for me that was very good. And I got a 0 on it. And they said it was off topic, but I think it's because the instructor overheard me making fun of his ponytail. And I was like, this guy's going to be responsible for my life and like my grade. Like I just chirped him a little bit about his ponytail and he gave me a 0. So like that all happened around that same time. And I was like, this is stupid. Like I want to go do something that I want to do. So I kind of, made a switch and just went into helicopter school. And, that kind of led to real estate.
That takes a lot of guts, man. And not a lot of people's parents would have been supportive of that decision.
Yeah.
Like I feel like a lot of them would have hammered him like, hell no, you're going to finish college.
Well, my dad's like, every conspiracy theory you can imagine we're in on. He's a chiropractor. I've never been to a doctor. I've never been to a pediatrician. I've had no pharmaceuticals, no vaccines. And that's why they like homeschooled us. And so, he was always saying like, go find out something you want to do. The teachers don't always know more than you. Like, as important as education is, there's other stuff out there. Like my brother was very scholarly. He did great in school. I didn't care if I got the answers right. And it wasn't that I couldn't figure them out, but like once I got into helicopter school, I'm getting 90s and 95% on everything because there's a reward for going through the training. But when I had to learn algebra and geometry and things like that, I hated it. I was just like, this is.
And
not...
you were interested in it too.
Yeah. So, and it's not like I had horrible grades or anything like that. I feel like you just have to show up to high school to like finish it. And that's kind of was my plan. And in the meantime, on the weekends we raced motocross and then, segued that into helicopters. And then that kind of, ended up with me getting into real estate.
So as far as like your background, man, like what are your first memories of ambition? Like where do you think your ambition came from? Is that something that was intuitive within like your personality and how you were designed? Or did your parents do certain things that helped teach you work ethic or set a certain example? Like where did that come from that you developed this kind of like drive?
Everything I like is expensive. So,
Did your parents like? Well, let's go back to your parents because did they buy you and give you a lot of nice things, or they did not?
They did.
Oh, they did.
Which is like kind of unusually because
it is
that
unusual,
kind of ruins you. And but I got to go race motocross. That's like one of the most expensive sports to go and do. We didn't do it at a very high level. It was more like enthusiast. But if you're really like an amateur that's taking it seriously to go pro, you're over the course of your career, you'll spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions, to get to that point. Now, we didn't do that. I did it as hobbies on the weekends and had fun with it. But, as time progresses, you realize the parents aren't going to pay for that stuff anymore. And I didn't want to stop doing it. And I had to figure out ways that I could continue doing the things that I enjoyed.
That's incredible.
So
that movie was the one that, what film was that again?
The Art of Flight.
The Art of Flight. And that shot's what inspired you to literally drop college and go become a helicopter pilot.
Yes. So
what that journey look like? How long did it actually take you to get certified to start flying? Like, what does that career pay initially? Like, how long did you do that before you ended up transitioning into real estate?
So, you can get a private pilot's license pretty quick because that's 40 hours. Most people aren't ready to pass their check ride at 40 hours because that's just 40 hours of flight time, but you have to learn regulations, book work, weather, maintenance, things like that. And then commercial is 150 hours. I got my flight instructor after that, which is about another, you could do it pretty quickly, but let's say I got all of my ratings around 240 hours.
Okay.
And I was in California and I was offered a job as a flight instructor, which is like the first job you get, which doesn't make any sense to me because you just learned.
Wait, you went to California?
So I finished my rating in California for 3 months.
Ah, okay.
And just because it was February here, like January, it was cold here, it was warm there. I had an apartment that my buddy was renting that I could sleep on his couch, and I wanted to go ride motorcycles in the winter. and there was a flight school out there that I could get my last rating at really quickly.
Good timing.
Yeah. So I went out there and I was offered a job at that school as a flight instructor. But I just don't believe that if you just learned, you shouldn't be teaching the next guy. Like
True.
all of the people that I had they were like decades long career flight instructors, and they were really good. And then most of the flight schools in the country, whether it's airplanes or helicopters, you learn and then you teach the next guy. And you're teaching the next guy for $400 a week. You can't live in California on $400 a week. It's cheap pay. And so I'm flying over like Malibu and I'm looking at all these crazy houses. And I was like, man, I bet I could take a picture of that house, go door to door and sell them and make like $1,000 a day. So
of photos of the houses.
Yeah. So that's how, which eventually led to real estate. So I came back to Michigan.
That's a cool niche. So you just start taking photos of these epic estates, aerial, and then selling those photos to the owners?
Yes. Door to door. And
really? Did they ever get irritated, or were there like barriers to entry, or?
They can't get irritated because I'm so high up and far away. It's not like a drone where it looks like you're like spying on somebody's pool.
Sure.
I'm a half a mile away with a zoom lens, flying down Cass Lake, shooting every house on this shore, every house on that shore, creating samples, going door to door and saying, hey, I took this picture. Do you want to buy it? And didn't work great. Nobody likes when you knock on their door trying to sell them something. But a friend of mine, I took a picture of his dad's business in his lake house, which was for sale. And he's like, hey, I think you'd be good at selling real estate. I don't like my realtor. If you get your license, you can sell my house. And it was $1 million house. And I did the math in my head. I'm like, wow, I'd have to sell a lot of pictures to make that. So I signed up for real estate school, took the 1 week class, took the test, and got hired at Sotheby's. And kind of my first 3 listings were from selling pictures door to door, and they were all over $1 million, and I was 23.
Wow, that's epic. So if the initial failed business turned into a successful business.
Yes.
It goes to show just taking action is better than doing nothing.
Well, the other thing I was going to do is I was going to start a helicopter tour company, which I do have one now, but it's not like anything that I focus on for real income. It's just to kind of offset the cost of ownership. But I wrote a business plan to do it, and I've secured funding for it. And I realized how much you had to earn to break even on that. And as like a 23-year-old, you're like, let's even, you get this, you take out this big loan and all this debt, and then you have to go create this business from scratch. I'm like, you're making 12 grand a month is what I felt like you had to make it worth it. And we're not in a state where the weather's great all the time. So I just was like, man, I'm not going to take that on. So that's why I did the door to door stuff, because I could rent the helicopter from a friend, only pay for what I used, and then go sell the pictures.
Very smart. That's a wild transition, man. So it was all almost like fate and happenstance that led it. And then, so talk about the beginning phases then of the sales business, those first 3 listings. Like, how did it go? Were there a lot of unknowns, not having experience? Because like you mentioned earlier, as a pilot, like you want someone that has experience. Real estate's similar. It takes a couple of years to really understand all the components that go into the business, the negotiation elements. Like, how were those first few transactions? How'd they go? And then how did you slowly grow that business?
Well, the first several of them, like those 3 houses that were over $1 million, I actually didn't sell any of those 3. But we made really entertaining videos that got like thousands and thousands of views. And this was before people really got big on video and real estate. So I would be able to go to a listing appointment and I'd say, hey, listen, I don't know nearly as much about real estate as maybe some of the other people you're going to talk to, but I can get more people to look at your house online than anybody. And I believed that. So people would give me a chance. We jumped a motorcycle over a house. It got, went viral, and it's just kind of snowballed. So people just started associating me with luxury real estate, even though I didn't really have any experience. And it just kind of like one thing led to another. I let a lot of my hobbies be where I got my business from. So, motorcycle racing is an expensive sport. Knew a lot of people in that. I hung out at the racetracks. I would go and coach other, guys that were there for free. I'd video them. I'd break it down with them, and just for fun. And then when they had to go do something with real estate, they were going to call me. So that was like a lot of the first customers that came through. And then, all the other normal stuff, open houses and, just the snowball effect of how getting successful in real estate works.
Do you remember that first year? Like, did you actually make money in the first year, or was it the second year?
I made 46,000.
Okay.
I did 11 transactions, and then I did 32 my second year.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So and then
30, you did 32 million or
32
no?
transactions.
32 transactions.
Yeah,
next
I think
year.
I did
So
11 million my second year, and
That's
I did
huge.
that with a broken femur. I broke my femur in a motorcycle accident, and they said I wouldn't walk for 6 months to a year. It was in October, and I said, "Well, I'm going to Aspen in January, so I'm going to have to be ready for that." And the guy's like, "Yeah, you're not going to go to that trip." I'm like, "Oh, you'll see." And so I have a metal rod in my leg. I did.
So this is at the end of your first year in real estate, going into your second year.
Yeah.
And you want to be in Aspen in January. You break your leg in October, you said?
October 6th, and last week of January, we were in Aspen. And I did go snowboard. And then, I think in March, I was able to, do backflips on the snowboard again. And again, the guy was like, "Yeah, you're going to be dicked up. Your leg's going to be messed up for life." And I'm like, "No, it's not. It's going to heal perfectly." And I just did double physical therapy. I had bone broth. I had collagen. I had, my dad's a chiropractor. So we did a lot of, very focused nutritional things to make sure the bones heal. Ligaments are a lot harder to heal than bones, but this is the biggest bone in your body and it broke in 4 spots. So, very blessed with the recovery.
So wait, how long is that recovery usually for most people?
6 months.
6 months, and you did it in under 3.
It wasn't perfect at,
But you did it in 3, and you were snowboarding.
Well, the doctor said, he's like, "You can do anything that doesn't hurt too bad. Your leg will tell you if it's not good." So like over New Year's, I was, so it's October, so November, December, over New Year's, I was playing golf and, doing a little bit of light cycling. And then shortly after, I was walking on a cane and then putting the snowboard on, like 3 weeks before the trip. So yeah,
that's an epic story. It goes, well, it's also a testament too to like the healing powers of the body if it's supplied with the correct nutrition. So you drank a ton of bone broth, took collagen supplements, which were help facilitate that repair.
Yeah.
What else did you do? Do you remember?
I did a lot of cycling. There's specifically,
and you
like
doubled up on your rehab. You said
you doubled up on rehab. I ate bone vitamins, like literally like raw cow bones. Bone broth, collagen, this other stuff called Ligaplex 2. My dad sells these things at his chiropractic office. So we were like a case study. The physical therapist was like blown away because he's like, "You never saw anything like that." And, but a lot of them, the motocross kids and, growing up doing extreme sports and things like that, they healed, they heal better than normal. Like, some people take 6 months for an ACL, and, my friend who's racing Supercross did his, and he was, back riding in 2.5 months.
Wow.
So, I just think it's like the mindset a little bit. Like you
guys were young back then too.
Yeah.
So when you're in your early 20s or whatever, it's probably easier for the body to recover as well. That's wild, man. So you said, so you had broke your leg. That was the end of the first year of real estate. In the second year, you essentially more than doubled your units. So the first year was a little slow, but you built the pipeline and then it compounded.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Since the first year, I've averaged between 30 and 50 transactions each year.
And they're essentially roughly $1 million. I mean, you did 50 million last year.
Yeah. I do stuff in all price points, but the last couple of years I've gotten a lot of like really crazy ones. And, using the helicopter, I've been able to surface stuff up in Traverse City, Mount Pleasant, Metamora, Lapeer. I'll fly to places if it's worth it. It's almost like, that is wonderful that I get that business, but it's also really hard to service stuff that's really far away. Like you've built a local business, and that's like probably preferable.
I don't have a helicopter to fly otherwise.
Well, I still drive like 40,000 miles a year.
Oh, it's a ton, man.
It's a ton. And, if you look at the state of where I've done business, the map has chicken pox. And I'm all over. So, I tell people that are getting going, because I get a lot of DMs and people asking me for help. And I'm like, pick one spot and expand from there and save yourself some time. Like really farm it, really be like a local expert. And, I'm like, do the exact opposite of what I will do, because I'll just take anything. And, some of them sell, some of them don't. I try my hardest. And, but I think, like, for example, you do a lot of your business in Birmingham. Think of how many top agents there are just advertising right here. You go like 2 cities over,
and there's nobody.
There's nobody that's like a clear-cut winner in almost any market. And so if you start to have any impressive sales and you start really farming those areas, you will get more.
Yeah, and you have a larger audience too, because if you're canvassing the entire state as
Yeah.
opposed to me, like one 10,000 square foot, or 10,000 residential homes in a city,
Yeah.
with some surrounding communities, it's a big difference. You got a big
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like, you think of the amount of pieces of mail that these houses in Birmingham receive from different people,
Yeah, that's a lot.
and to be the person that sticks out. So, that's where, using my hobbies was really important, is building the relationships with people so you're really referable.
Well, it makes the business more enjoyable too, because then you're getting to live the life that you want and do all the things that you want to do, and you haven't really had to compromise those.
Yeah.
I feel like my journey was different, where I kind of sacrificed all hobbies and fun for a duration of years to just hone in and just do business 24/7. And that, I see how rewarding your life is. You have a great time.
I do. There was maybe 2 years where I didn't have as much fun, but I still tried. But I think a lot of people, when they for observing from afar, I think most people get the impression that I don't work a lot, but I do. But while I'm working, going on a ski trip is work to me. Because guess what? There's 8 guys there. They're all going to need a house.
That's true.
And if you're good at snowboarding, you get invited on more ski trips.
That's true.
So, and that goes back to the extreme sports thing. I can do a lot, hit the big jumps still on the ski trips, and that person gets invited more frequently. I can tell you that.
You're a good wakeboarder too.
I would not. Anybody that wakeboards would not say that. But I can do one trick. I can do a backflip on a wakeboard, and everything else is really hard and it sucks to fall. Wakeboarding really sucks to fall. And I got this one thing that I can do, and people are like, you're a great wakeboarder. And then everybody else there, a 360 is way harder to do than a backflip, because you have to pass the rope behind your back. That pass is hard. But the people on the boat don't know that.
That's true.
Yeah.
I feel like the other cool thing you've done, man, I almost feel like your journey has not necessarily been a real estate agent as much as a marketer. You did a great job of tying together all the activities and things you're passionate about into your own brand identity, leveraging those audiences, and then also being very creative in your marketing. You've done some wild videos, like you said, that really get a lot of exposure, that drive traffic, that help sell those more rural homes that usually don't have an audience. And it's a perfect niche, because there's not a lot of competent agents that go out that far that sell those luxury mansions. If they're out there, they're probably older. They don't do a lot of stuff online. And to sell that product, you really need to have a mass audience, and it needs to be done online. And you've done a great job marketing.
Thank you.
Did that come to you naturally? Was it just kind of trial and error? Was it fun? How did you develop that marketing expertise?
When I was younger, I wanted to be a stuntman. And we would make little stunt shows and videos and snowboard videos and wakeboard and ski and all these things. And if you ever watch Rob Dyrdek's Fantasy Factory,
I've not seen it, no.
Okay, he's pro skateboarder, and he had a TV show, and he would launch brands, and he would do it very fun. And I always resonated with him, and I watched all of his shows, and he was like, okay, if I think that's a great way to advertise stuff. And I kind of tucked that away in my head. And then when I had something to advertise, I was like, let's make it fun and, get people's attention. So, when the little marketing gimmicks and stunts that he did to launch brands, he's built several $100 million brands, was a monster athlete. He was not a great skateboarder, but he's probably the highest paid ex-pro skateboarder that there is.
Really?
If you've seen the MTV show Ridiculousness.
Yeah. Yep.
That's him.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. He's shot 1,565 episodes of that, and he does his schedule is absolutely insane. The guy's a machine and an animal, and he does a lot of vision boards, and he's just a really interesting guy that was fun to watch. And a kid that didn't enjoy school, I'd watch him and be like, that guy probably didn't enjoy school either, but he's killing it. And so I used him as, I would say, as if I had to pick one person as an example. I also, when I was younger, I read a lot of books. I read Trump's books, The Art of the Deal and Think Like a Billionaire, and a lot of other, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And
so what led you to, when did you start reading business books? Was that before?
When I was homeschooled.
Is when you're homeschooled. It's really that young, you started picking those up. How were you exposed to those? Because I didn't start reading those books till college, a couple of years in.
My dad. And my dad is a big reader, so he's a top chiropractor in the world. And I would, if you came home to my house, he's either bouncing on his trampoline, watching TV and reading a medical journal, or he's sitting in his chair reading something. And, he's just a total student of what he does. And I was exposed to that my whole life. And, it was inspiring to watch. So he made us read some stuff when we were younger, and I enjoyed it. More of homeschooling for me was like reading and finding out things like that than it was just curriculum.
Let's talk about the homeschooling thing for a little bit, because I feel like a lot of people have the image of homeschooling as being negative, antisocial. But now I think in the last 5 years, with all the political agendas and like the deterioration of our U.S. educational system, it seems like a lot of people now are shifting back toward either private schools or homeschooling. Yeah. And out of like our social circle, you're probably the most outgoing guy that I know by far. And you run at a very high pace. You socialize with everybody. And you grew up in a homeschooling environment. So how does that happen? Because it's kind of like counterintuitive and it's opposite of what most people believe.
Well, we played sports. We were always exposed to people. And then also my parents always talked to us like we were adults. And we were always encouraged to talk to adults, intelligently, I think, from a young age. So I just was a kid that wouldn't shut up. So I was around a lot of people still. And obviously went to public high school, and I did do a private school for 8th grade, but I don't know that I could point to one thing. I know several other people from like homeschool groups that we would attend that are, very successful now and, very interesting, but yeah, there's no shortage on weirdo kids there too.
So as far as like, looking back on your life, man, do you think homeschooling was a benefit? Was it a negative? Is it something
for sure?
It was a benefit.
Yeah.
What are your top takeaways from it that were beneficial?
You get taught how to think, not what to think. And that was like the focus of it more than anything. It's like you watched COVID, and not for 1 second did I fall for any of it or think that it was a big deal or anything other than the flu. And people locked their whole lives down and put themselves in self-contained prisons because the television told them to. And day one of the lockdown, I drove up and rode my motorcycle at a trail. They're like, the trail's going to be closed. They're going to kick you out. I'm like, oh, okay, try, And then day 2 of the lockdown, I landed my helicopter in the backyard of somebody's house for a listing appointment. I went to my office every day. I didn't wear a mask. And, that might have been unpopular for some people, but I just was like, I'm not going to pretend I'm sick when I'm not for any reason ever. So, and not enough people chirped me about it because I would have loved to get in arguments in stores with people for breathing air while they weren't. But whatever. It was like I'd see all these people getting in altercations online. I'm like, why is that not me? I'd have a blast at that. Growing up playing hockey too, you like to, talk crap to people, and motorcycle racing, a lot of locker room talk. So, I wish that I had maybe more confrontations, but it didn't happen.
I will say, man, the way that you've lived your life has been very authentic. Like you've not compromised. Because I remember we were founding, structuring Title Works at the time, the title company. We had meetings and with one of the managing partners, and like they were mandating everyone wear masks, and you're just real transparent. Like, yeah, sorry, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And you did it in a polite manner, but you're the only one, one of the only people probably ballsy enough just to say no. I'm not going to do it. Well, which took a lot of courage then.
Well, funny, I went to a listing appointment for $1 million house. I walk up and they got the masks on, and they were like, do you have a mask? I'm like, no. And they're like, are you vaccinated? I'm like, never in my life, and I never will be. And they like paused for a second. I was like, listen, this is like a challenging property to sell out in the country that was expensive. And I was like, listen, I'm probably the best guy you're going to call to sell this house. And I would love to work with you, but I'm not going to pretend I'm sick to do it. And if that's your requirement, then find somebody else. And they were like, well, we don't want to wear these either. But I was like, yeah, I'm totally prepared. Like, I don't, I was like, I knew I would just hate him the whole time.
Yeah.
So like stuff like that, like I don't have problems sticking up for myself and, what I think is right. And even if it's unpopular, and, I've certainly said things online that I don't think most people in a sales position would publicly say, but that's been, just whatever. I don't think it's harmed me.
That's what's been impressive is usually in the business world, like if you, especially during COVID, that was like people were avidly against if you did not wear it. It was one side or the other. And usually it brought a lot of conflict. And yet you were authentic, you were real, you didn't compromise, and you were outspoken like politically, which during that time frame was a big no-no as well. And yet your business flourished when usually it would cripple you. You lose 50% of the market possibly. But you were never worried about that. And in the end, it didn't hurt you at all. What do you attribute that to?
Well, you only need, like, out of a database of 200 people should produce 40 transactions a year, approximately, through direct sales, listing sales, and referrals. That's like a number that, and I always had good relationships with people. So I only need about 40 people to like me a year. And, the people that really think the same way as you are like, oh, hell yeah, I wish I could say that. And there's other people that didn't feel the same way that still worked with me. And you just tone it down a little bit for them.
Did you ever have any like major issues or pushback or fallout from being overly authentic, or maybe being overly outspoken and vocal about it?
Probably, but nothing that I can point to. Like, there's maybe people that didn't hire me, but there's other people that made up for it that were like, oh, this is great.
What about what about the brokerage or other agents in the business? Was there any negative consequences you can think of?
No.
That's awesome.
I mean, again, maybe, but like I didn't have any crazy run-ins with people or anything like that.
I feel like we live in an era where everyone's so scared to be raw and authentic because of the pushback and how like noisy the 1% to 5% are that like to cry and force their opinions on everyone else's throats. That it's almost like rare and refreshing now for someone to be completely 100% authentic, real, and uncompromising. I think we're entering like a new page, especially post COVID, where people believe a lot of things that weren't true. Yeah.
And the new election now, people are like, they're not as afraid to say things anymore.
That's true.
Which is great because, again, people put themselves in a self-contained mental prison for no reason. And now they're like, oh yeah, by the way, it did come from a lab in Wuhan, China. And you would get, like, I literally got my Twitter account permanently deleted before Elon bought it back. I had to get a new one. My Instagram was shut off multiple times. My Facebook was threatened to be deleted. I had to threaten to sue Meta to get my stuff back. And, you
and was that from like your COVID comments, or what was
yeah, saying things that were obviously true that weren't the current talking points. Actually, I making fun of Hunter Biden. That was what got me banned from Instagram. I made hockey jerseys of one of his inappropriate pictures from his laptop. That's our current hockey. We're the Ukrainian energy experts. And it's a picture of Hunter Biden smoking a cig in his underwear. And, that was, I literally posted a picture of my hockey jersey, which is just a cartoon. And they were like, your Instagram is done. You can never have it back. And I'm like, how can this be against anything?
It's a joke.
It didn't even say his name on it. It was a cartoon. So I had to like threaten to sue them to get my account back. Cause at that time I used to spend like probably $20,000 a year on Facebook ads. And I'm like, why am I paying you guys for you to tell me that I can't post this stuff? So I was like, I want a refund on all of my ads. Like, I'm like, you can ban me. That's fine. I understand. If I violated your terms, that's great. But I don't want to have spent, thousands of dollars building this stuff up for you to take it away from me over literally nothing. And then like, I got my account back.
Really?
But then
most people didn't though.
And then I did have to like kind of self-censor just on Instagram for a little while because it is important for my business. So I just like chilled on some of the stuff that I was doing there. But when Elon bought X, you're like, okay, we can have a free-for-all over there.
Yeah, you've got a big social media following. Did that kind of flow authentically with all the helicopter videos and stuff like that? Or what did you do strategically to build your online following?
So I'd say getting started with it early was helpful and having stuff go viral. I worked with some companies that helped do shout outs and things like that as well. And, resharing content. And, one of the things you have to do is you have to get accounts that are slightly larger than you to interact on your posts. And most of those people aren't going to do that for free. So, I'd put a little budget together with these groups and then they would, reshare and, and that can draw a lot of fake followers as well, but also real ones. But at the end of the day, It's all the more engagement you get, the more people you see, whether they're, some of them might be bots or some of them are real. It is helpful. So I did focus a lot on that. I get monetized on Facebook because I never got like super banned on Facebook, just Instagram. And I made like $9,000 last year just reposting listings on my page, other people's and my own.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The more times people spend on your page, just like YouTube, the more dollars you get. So I would find interesting houses all over the state of Michigan and post them on my page, and I would get paid for it. And some agents that are really like a pain in the ass, in my opinion, they don't like that if you share their listing.
Sure.
But I'm giving free exposure. I name them. I put their phone number on it. I had a guy up. He had a listing on Mackinac Island that was this really cool Victorian house. And I posted it on my page and it got 3 million views. Now, during the time he had that listing for a year on Zillow, it had 15,000 views. So you'd think this guy would be calling me to thank me. He was so insecure that he thought I was trying to steal his clients by posting something on the internet that's already on the internet in a different spot with his name on it. He's threatening to sue me. And I just kept ignoring him because I thought it was funny. He's like, you need to take this down right now. And I'm like, why? He's like, it's mine. I'm like, when you lose the license for the photo when you post it on RealComp. I don't know if you know that, but as long as you give somebody proper credit, you can, the terms and conditions of RealComp is any realtor can use it for advertising. That's why your Keller Williams listings can appear on my Sotheby's website and vice versa. So the guy's wrong. And he's sitting there losing his mind at me over me advertising him for free. And I just kept kind of nudging him a little bit and poking him. And I eventually I did take it down because I was like, I don't really need to get sued over this. But the post had already, I waited till it already went through its peak and went back down. And I was like, all right, I'll remove it. But
it's amazing how short-sighted people can be if they have old school mindsets and limiting beliefs.
Yeah. I mean, I reshared one of your listings one time and somebody from my office was like, why would you promote him? And I'm like, it's a sweet house. Like, I'd love to sell that house to somebody. And one of these days, somebody's going to call me to see that house. And that's happened. So it's like, wow, like if you don't have content for yourself that month, post something,
It's true. I feel like this business is a combination of a lot of different skill sets. I mean, marketing, negotiation, relationships, and then like data and sheer knowledge base. You combine all of those, it's pretty effective. But a lot of people are too small-minded, I think, to like really get the maximum exposure in the marketing world, which you've not been. You've been very creative. You've done a great job with it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what's next, man? Like you've got a great sales business, a good niche. We've got a title company, mortgage company. You do enough business to where your lifestyle is completely free, man. You get to ride motorcycles and snowboard and wakeboard and do a lot of cool stuff. How do you envision the next like 5 or 10 years? What is it you want to do? Or do you just want to maintain the same lifestyle and like keep it rolling?
Well, I think, any type of growth is awesome. And I'm always looking for stuff like that. But right now, we just had a baby boy. I have to raise another unvaccinated patriot to carry on the legacy of athleticism and accomplishment. So, he's going to be my little buddy that does everything with me. So my goal is to raise the most talented, coordinated, athletic child that I possibly can as a human specimen.
That's a lofty goal.
Yeah. So I can, there's like, I grew up and my dad's a big believer in the trampoline as an exercise tool. And so I grew up with 5 of them at our house and I learned how to do all these like gymnastic things on my own, but I was never pushed to do it. But if I grew up like getting pushed to do slacklining and unicycling and trampolines and gymnastics, and then I think you build that as a base and then you can go play any sport like a lot better. Because most people don't focus on the balance and coordination at a young age. And not that that's like my financial goal, but that's like what I'm going to be doing with my son and whatever children we have. We're going to have a lot of fun because I need somebody to do this stuff with me. But financially, continuing to grow the sales business. I do other I've done some other like private equity deals and, we're launching a drink in 70,000 stores in probably the second quarter of this year. So I've been working on that just as a hobby. But real estate's going to be the focus. And then any of these other things we're going to just kind of keep working on.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So as far as the design that you have in your mind and how you're going to raise this kid, what does that look like other than making him athletic out of the gate with trampoline and gymnastics as a base?
Well, he's going to be homeschooled and we're going to learn how to do stuff. Like I feel like most people just go to school and it could be accomplished in like an hour and a half, and that like the rest of the day is wasted. And when we're done doing the whatever little bit of schoolwork we have to do, they're going to learn skills, and they're going to learn skills in sports and business. And, all my friends that have other businesses that are different than mine, it's like, if you have a drywall business, my kid's going to be there, helping you. They're going to, if you're painting, if you're installing stuff, they will be competent in a bunch of things from a young age. While everybody else is watching SpongeBob, we're going to be, raising our own food and honey and, animals and stuff like that.
The school of dylan.tent. I like it. That's awesome, man. It's exciting. It's a good target, great goal. What do you think there are like some misunderstandings about you? We'll just do some just questions here at the end, unless there's something else that you want to talk about.
No, whatever.
What's something that people misunderstand about you because of your like bold or out of the box approach, do you think?
I think a lot of maybe other people in our industry think that I got a lot of business from having a helicopter, when it's like not been the thing that's gotten me business. I think people will use that as an excuse for why they aren't doing more sales. And it's like, nobody calls me and says, yeah, I need to go see this house from your helicopter. That's happened like once, maybe twice, like maybe like a couple sales, like out of hundreds, where that was where it came from. Like I track where every deal comes from, and it's like maintaining good relationships with people, follow up. Being fun to be around when you're with them too, and caring and not lying to people. Cause all these people, you go into a showing, I hear these people that I get a lot of people that fired their agent, right? And they call me and they're like, they did this and they did that. And they tried to push me into this and that. And, it's like, I just want them to be happy, and way before I ever make money. And you just, some of the things you hear and see from people, but so
what are those top few things that you hear that when people fire a real estate agent, what are the reasons that they were fired?
Like, here's an example. I just sold one of my investment properties, and I get a call from somebody like, hey, I want to go show your listing tomorrow. And then they schedule the appointment, and then they call me back and go, they wouldn't sign the buyer's agency agreement with me, so I'm not going to show it. And I'm like, that's stupid. Like, you're supposed to do that, right? But what are you going to do? Not show somebody a house because they won't sign a contract with you? So that person that wanted to see my listing called me 5 minutes later because it was a Zillow lead. And they're like, hey, can I see your house? I'm like, yeah. Like, do I have to sign a buyer's agency agreement? I'm like, no, I don't care. Like, I was like, find out if you want to work with me and we'll worry about that later. And I just watched this person talk themselves out of $12,000 because they got worried about the paperwork
And the rules, yeah.
And it's like, stuff like that. Then the other thing, people trying to sell somebody a house that they don't, isn't right for them. When like, I hate it when people go into every house like it's the best house ever when it sucks.
I agree.
And people are like, this is a great house. You're going to love this. And it's like right behind the train tracks, and there's
bad location, poor for resale. Yeah.
There's a junkyard next door. Like, I'm like, I want to, like, if you buy this house and you get relocated in 6 months, I don't want you to take a loss. I don't want you to get crushed. I don't want just to be impossible to get in and out of, and people are ultimately going to make their own decision, you're not really supposed to like influence them on this purchase, right? It's supposed to be there, but I like to give people real honest feedback of what I think is a good house and what's not, and, people like, you get some of these bad inspection reports and people are trying to talk people into a house that's filled with black mold. And you're like, oh yeah, this is no problem. You can fix this. It's like, yeah, it's never not going to be like, I don't know. I just see people get like really trying to push people into stuff that is not a good decision just to make a sale. And I don't do that.
It's a great philosophy, man. I think it's similar. I think there's probably like 1% of us at the top that are very real, transparent. We don't necessarily need the transaction. It doesn't make or break us. And so we're able to be more authentic and give actual feedback based on the buyer consult and what their exit strategy is. And like, it's a bad house for you to buy based on your exit plan. And being real and raw with people, I think it builds their trust. It's better to be authentic than to be a cheap, like fake salesperson. It's a good philosophy to live by for sure.
Another thing, like I see people all the time, other agents. I show a lot of my own listings because they're expensive, right?
Mhm.
And you kind of got to go to those ones.
Yeah.
And I see people that are also agents that are trying to flex their knowledge in front of their clients so much that they're distracting them from falling in love and liking the house. So I'm showing this one just the other day, and the agent is asking me so many super technical questions that the buyer isn't even asking, just to show their own superiority and their knowledge. And it's like these people were just really like enjoying the house, and they kept distracting them from the good stuff. And I'm like, there's also a line there too, because like some of it is selling, right? But don't sell somebody something that they shouldn't buy, but also don't distract them from, it's like everybody wants to go have a long conversation with everybody while they're looking at the house. And it's like, that's what you talk about on the front porch and in the backyard, but we're in here. Let's get into this place and like it.
Experience the house. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's another thing I see a lot of people doing. I'm like, how do you sell anything like this?
I agree.
Yeah.
Those are good takeaways, actually.
Yeah.
So you usually see that clients fire agents on the buy side more often or on the listing side? What about on the listing side? Like, what are some reasons that agents get fired?
Lack of communication is the biggest one, I think. These like listings that have been up for sale for a long time, they're so afraid to ask for a price drop or make suggestions about getting fired that they get fired because they feel like they're not doing anything. I talk with like a friend of mine in Florida. He has a bunch of investment properties for sale. And he's like, I haven't talked to my agent that has this one for sale in 2 months.
Wow.
And they have no feedback. They have no market data. They don't tell me if I'm high or low. They don't tell me anything. He's like, is that normal? I'm like, no, and sometimes there's people that want to have their house for sale. And sometimes there's people that want to sell their house. And, the people that want to have their house for sale, you might have to do less communication with them because they're like, if somebody pays me this, I'll take it. Will you list it? Sure. Right. I've had those. I've had stuff that I've, not sold, and then they get serious later on and they do it. I've been fired just like anybody else for not selling somebody's house when I did everything that I could. And ultimately it's, a lot of times comes down to pricing. They say, you don't want to be somebody's first real estate agent sometimes on the sell side because people have lofty expectations, and then, they eventually get down to reality. So I try to, do a lot of education about that up front. So
it's funny, man, because I think a lot of times it's almost better, depending on the seller's expectation, like you said.
Yeah.
A lot of agents will tell them a price that's too high for the market, and then they'll get the listing and then they lose it after 3 to 6 months because it's priced too high. They can't get it down to where it should be. And then you end up the second call. I mean, I think most of the listings I've lost were because I was very transparent. Like, look, this is the number. This is where it's going to trade.
Yeah.
If it was my asset and I owned it, here's where I'd price it. Here's where I'd execute. And then someone tells them a price that's way higher. They believe them, list it, and then it sits for 6 months. And they're calling me afterward.
I've certainly not taken, maybe there's ones that I've taken before that I knew were overpriced that wouldn't sell. But also, like, you don't want to lose listings too because of that sometimes you can sell the neighbor's house, open houses, things like that. But
Get a buyer lead off.
What I really try to do is educate them on what I truly believe it's worth and say, if you guys want to try this like this, I'm fine. Let's give it 30 days and let's revisit it. But this is where the market is for this right now. And everybody wants to cost what it would be to build a new house for their house that was built in 1990. And, you see that a lot. It's like, this is what it would cost to build. It's like, yeah. And if you're building right now, would you build this house? No, then shut up.
Different floor plan, different finishes. Yeah, exactly. Your house needs to be renovated. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I see that all the time. And it's like, I don't know. It's just kind of funny.
So let's talk a little bit about philosophy. What drives you more, the fear of failure or the desire to achieve something greater?
I am not afraid of failure, and I never have been. So probably the achieve greater.
So you're more incentivized by adventure, fun stuff.
Yeah.
And becoming greater, growing.
I have no problem. I was thinking on the way here, which would be kind of funny. These people that always ask you for sales advice, if you can go into a restaurant and ask somebody if you can eat French fries off their plate, that's a stranger, you could probably be good at sales. Because if you can get that rejection and not be worried about it, because I bet you, if you did that until you said, hey, can I have one of those French fries? Like, so many people would be mortified with fear to do that. And I would probably, like, as this a joke, I would, like, I don't do this, but I would have no problem going to do that until I got a French fry. And if I was, like, mentoring somebody and I said, go into, like, this nice restaurant and without bugging people too much, get somebody else to give you a piece of food, even though you're not, like, a bum. And then if you can face that level of rejection, then, like, what do you have to be afraid of? Because people are so afraid of being told no and being told off. But
that's true.
I thought about that on the way here. I thought it was an interesting thing to do.
Social discomfort's a big fear for most people.
Yeah.
I think that's even greater now with social media. The younger generation are so insecure because they don't even interact face to face.
Yeah.
It's like everything's digital. Is there a specific failure or setback that taught you more than your successes?
Oh yeah, tons of them.
Talk about a couple of those.
I said tons of them, and now I got to think. But I just think that, like, you know, like, let's say any of those listings I ever lost or sales that didn't close, you know, some of them are a lot more valuable than, you know, the very first couple houses I sold, you know, overpriced them, wasn't confident enough to tell them, you know, letting the client be in charge of everything and telling me what it should be priced for and what it should sell for, and losing deals like that. I mean, I'd have to think a little bit more about more specific examples, but, you know, the failure side of thing, you learn more from your failures than your successes.
What about failures outside of business? I mean, you have any of those in sports or athletics or growing up?
You know, yeah, I mean, yeah, probably. Yeah, I'm very competitive, so I love winning. I'm very, you know, that's not something that's. I think everybody that's in sales loves winning, but I love winning a lot more than I don't hate losing, because I don't mind losing, but I could get very excited about a win, even if it's Uno. if I'm meeting you at Uno, I'm in my total glory.
Wait, if you're meeting where?
If I'm beating somebody in Uno.
Oh, in Uno. So you're a big Uno player. Okay.
No, it's just a dumb game like that. If I beat you in Uno, it's the biggest deal in the world.
You just love winning, even at small stuff.
If I lose at Uno, it's not that big of a deal. Uno is not even important to me. And it drives my friends nuts, because if I play them in a card game or a video game or if golf, if I beat you at golf, I'm not going to shut up about it. And if I lose, I'm like, I didn't even really want to play golf today. It's not even that big of a sport for me.
That's so funny. And I'm the opposite. Like, I do love to win, but I abhor losing.
Yeah.
I hate losing more than anything in the world.
Yeah. I mean,
it is like,
I don't like losing.
It eats at me.
I just love the winning way more. Yeah.
It's so funny, that philosophy. That's a good conversation. All right. So how do you maintain, like, the hunger to keep pushing boundaries when you've already kind of established a great business and you've got the lifestyle you want? Like, how do you keep yourself motivated on a path of growth?
I'm going to answer this the same way as I answered a previous question. Everything I like is expensive. You know, I mean, there's levels. Like, I guess once you hit like a certain plateau of what you want to accomplish, maybe you'll become less hungry, but I haven't gotten it all yet. Not that it's all physical things. Like, physical things are, you know, they're important to me, but they're not. The experiences, but, you know, I wanted to be able to afford a helicopter, and I thought that was going to take way longer, and I got it. And I was like, I want to live on a lake. I got a lake house. I do want to get an airplane one day. That's like, you know, and then I want to have a place in Colorado to ski and go there in the summer and play outside. And, you know, I think there's a lot of people that get unfulfilled by money because they want what they think others think they should have with the money
instead of what they actually want.
With what they actually want. But I know for a fact I actually want a place to ski because I've done it my whole life and I love it. Like, I'm not getting it because I don't like skiing and snowboarding. Like, but other people will go, like, you see people that buy things that they don't really even want them because they think they should because they have the money. And those are the miserable rich people.
Because then they're busy maintaining all their stuff that they didn't really want.
I've seen people, they go and buy this thing. They, you know, they get 3 dozen sports cars and they don't ever drive them. And it's like, I will never have a garage queen car. I am going to drive it like one of my goals, and I know you had a 911, is to have the highest mileage 911 GT3 in the world. And I don't need to have 12 sports cars that I don't drive. I need to have one that I beat the living snot out of forever. And
See, you and I align on that philosophy.
yeah,
I drive the hell out of my cars.
You drive your stuff. I
drive an Aston Martin in the winter and snow right now.
Exactly, and that's awesome. And I love that about you.
I think it's a better way to live, man. It's funny because I grew up I feel like we were raised with very limiting beliefs as far as things that you had where you had to baby them and you couldn't even enjoy using it because you were so fearful of losing it or not being able to replace it. And that was a big mind shift change for me. It took years to rewire my brain to what is the point? You can always create more money or wealth. The point of having things is to enjoy them and do what you love and make those memories and drive. The car is meant to be driven, drive it.
Yep.
If you total it, figure out a way to get another one.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
I'm not sentimental. I would like to, and I also like another thing that I like to do, have one nice thing. Whatever it is, I don't need 5 crappy ones. I'll wait until I can get the one nice one. And whether that's a car or whether that's a this or that's a that, I don't need 12 of anything. I don't want the maintenance. I don't want the headache. I want one nice thing.
You and I agree on that philosophy as well.
Yeah.
100%. I'd rather have work really hard to get the one nice thing that lasts for a long period of time than disposable crap.
Yeah.
You got to constantly cycle through. It's a better way to live, I think. And it keeps your life less cluttered too.
Yes.
Can you share a moment or a memory where your authenticity or being unapologetically yourself had a profound impact in some way? It could be positive, it could be negative, or on your career, just something that stands out in your mind where your life philosophy ended up having some sort of profound impact.
Well, I think with being outspoken a lot about health when I was younger, being somebody that's doesn't do any pharmaceuticals or vaccines or things like that, the people that grew up around my family now are thanking, maybe myself and my dad because they got exposed to these things and they're like, oh my God, you were right about a lot of these things. And a lot of the stuff about the government, that, the sketchy stuff that goes on. And, we've been paying attention and not just believing what's on the news. And the amount of people that thank my dad for exposing, we're teenagers. And, my dad's yeah, they killed JFK, the moon landing's fake. And, they're going to use these viruses to create crises that are going to, bring in the New World Order and all these things. And then it's boom, 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 boom. They're going to release the JFK files. They just did, COVID came from the lab, so I would say the people around me, if they hadn't met me, some of them would have different outcomes in some of these things from being outspoken about, a lot of health stuff. People are, brushing with fluoride toothpaste, but it makes you stupid. And, it's these are all very easy things to check and verify. And then they still sell this stuff. You have to pay more for a product that doesn't have poison in it in the US than one that does.
That's true.
If you want laundry detergent and you want the one without the poison, it's $10 more than the one with the poison. And, we could just eat butter, but we have margarine and all these people think, oh my gosh, butter raises your cholesterol. People have no clue that half of your brain is fat and cholesterol. And then doctors want to put you on a low fat, low cholesterol diet. That makes you stupid. And now people are oh, eating meat is good for you. But 10 years ago, oh, if you have too much steak, you're going to have heart problems. It's you don't see healthy, diseased people that are eating mostly steak and eggs. It's the best food. And I know you and I feel the same way on that. But the stuff that people have seen about health in their life that they fall for, and we try to kind of nudge them in the right way, I think has been helpful for the people in my orbit.
So how do you feel about RFK now being, what was the position you used?
HHS?
HHS, yeah.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I know there's a lot of people that are shitting their pants though.
He's a good guy. I didn't really know much about him before I met him at the Bitcoin conference. I think it was 2 years ago. He brought his family and was announcing his run for office a year or so in advance. And great people, man. He seems like he's a pretty good guy and he's sharp.
Yeah, he is.
And he's sincerely passionate on making America healthy again. You can see it. You just go back and look at the photos and timestamps, pre-1970s, really. and how our food's just destroyed the country. It's
Yeah.
insane.
And I was very blessed to grow up with a father that has been saying these things that are now popular. My dog's here. That was him. No, but these things that were not popular to say are now, like, post-COVID, becoming popular. And so that's very, very cool to see. Because I got, like, a lot of crap from people for not being vaccinated in school, and you'd tell that to somebody and they'd, like, take a step back to make sure I didn't infect them. I'm like, what am I going to infect you with from the thing that you're protected against?
That's true. Have you ever felt pressured to compromise who you are for the sake of fitting in professionally?
No.
Not at all. You've never felt that pressure at all. You just ignored it, and it doesn't.
Yeah, I just
register.
It was not a concern, and that's in like a lot of stuff. I've always just kind of done it like what I did, and it's like, hey, if somebody doesn't like it, they can tell me, or they can talk shit about me behind my back or whatever. I don't care.
So here's a good question: if you would have played it safe and followed the traditional path in real estate, where do you think you'd be today versus the authentic, like, raw path that you've traveled?
I just don't think I would have played it safe. And that's somebody, like, I've taken a lot of risks in my life, but they've all been very calculated. And I think from the outside looking in, people be like, oh, that was a risky thing. But I felt like it was more risky not to do it. And all of the extreme sports that I did, I was always really, really confident that I was going to land something before I tried it. And, tried to get there because I don't like getting hurt. Doing all that stuff for decades, and I have one broken bone.
Visualization.
I have a lot, like, friends that have 35 broken bones. And that's not a joke. It's like and I was always trying to be safe, but, and ride within my limits and be within my limits and not push things too hard. But at the same time, I didn't have a big fear of failure. So I think that was a big help.
But it sounds like you did prepare more as well, and you visualized to avoid or mitigate injuries compared to your friends.
Yeah, maybe.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have anyone that you turn to for advice, mentorship, guidance when you're overwhelmed in life?
Yeah, also, several people for several different things. My dad's great. I have a business mentor, Dave Doney, that we bought a bunch of real estate together. He's the one that got me into real estate. We talk almost every day. The owner of our company, Doug Hardy, we talk all the time. He's very knowledgeable and insightful and has lots of great ideas. My friend Jim Blasius, he built a big company. I've had a lot of wonderful mentors that I've had access to. And I think that a lot of people are too uncomfortable to seek out the mentors. But I was always just genuinely interested in these people that had built something successful. And I always wanted to ask them a lot of intelligent questions about that. And I think I learned that from the Dale Carnegie books, because it's, like, one of the big principles is be genuinely interested in people. I was like, well, this person's done something interesting. We'd be on these, motorcycle riding trips with these millionaires, and, everybody else is sitting in maybe playing some dumb game or doing this and that. And I got to drive to across the country in a motorhome with these people and sit up front with them for 2 hours and just be like, how did you start? How did you get from here to here? And learning this story from along the way. Like, one guy, Jim Blasius, he had the largest paper route in the history of Oakland County at 8 years old. And I was like, that's really cool. And he's got this huge company now.
That's wild.
And I'm like, how did you do that? He's like, well, I would go and get donuts and stuff for the cops so that I could deliver the paper on my moped. And they didn't care if I did that. And then I recruited other kids to go deliver the paper for me. And this is an 8-year-old.
That's incredible.
And, and then he went from that to this, to that, to this, to that, started a business, it failed, started another business, failed, started another business, massively successful. And I watched this. Another guy, my real estate business partner, he was just a absolute animal hard worker, harder worker than I'll ever want to be. But he started sweeping the floors of the plastics plant when he was in, like, middle school until he was running it. And then he opened a business to compete against them and, sold it in 5 years for like $100 million. And that's super cool. Like watching that his level of work ethic, like, I don't want to be the hardest worker that there is, for sure. Because I've seen that. and he's the burnout and how much effort you have to put into it. I want to have the most fun life while I, so I don't know that I ever want to build some crazy massive company, because there's other things. Like if you reach a certain income level, you can have a lot of fun, and I'd rather have that than, a $10 million house in a state that I never visit and don't use and things like that. I don't know. Kind of went on a tangent there.
No, that's a good balance in life, boss, because some people do chase more and they get addicted to more and scaling businesses and addicted to the work, but like,
and they never use it when they get there.
Yeah, they never really utilize it.
Yeah.
And or if they do it such a minimal time that it's like it's not
they
gratifying.
do it, and then they're old and their body's not good. Like I very specifically want to be able to do these sports into my old age. So I want to do it while it's fun, when I'm young and I can do it, because you can always make more money. And that's another thing about having a son. Like I want to enjoy these young years, because a lot of people don't do that.
Sure.
So if I taper off a little bit, I know that you can always make more money later.
It's a great philosophy. So let's talk to the younger generation then. We get this younger generation of kids that figuring out what their careers are going to be. They've grown up in a social media type influenced world. A lot of them probably are lacking in work ethic potentially. So what advice do you give to someone who feels like they have to hide parts of themselves to be successful? In the world of social media pressures, these young kids have a tough time being authentic. What kind of advice would you give to them?
It's not something that's come up a bunch, but yeah, people have asked me like, how are you able to be, yourself like that? And I just tell them, I just don't care if they don't like it. And so many people are worried. Like, I think because I grew up homeschooled, I think it's an advantage that I wasn't in a classroom with 40 other kids judging me every day till, obviously I went to, high school, and that happens massively there. But I also didn't have a bunch of teachers. Like, I'm not the greatest student, right? And if I spent my younger years having teachers trying to put me on methamphetamines because I wanted to play outside, I would be a different person. They would be telling me I'm dumb because I didn't want to learn these math problems. And when I just, like, to put it in example, I told you we had 5 trampolines at my house. I would wake up, I would go put my school books on one, and I would go bounce on the other, and I'd go do 5 minutes of this, and then I would go to do 3 math problems. Like, that was my environment for learning rather than sitting at a classroom, because I just wasn't able to do it if I didn't do it that way. And you can't do that in a school. But if you look at, I think Finland has the best educated kids in the world, and they do double or triple the recess of what we do in the US for the first several years of school. So over here, it's, we got to go learn all this nonsense and sit inside in this poorly lit room with, and stare at a chalkboard. And they let the kids play and socialize a lot more. And these are the smartest, they turn out the smartest kids for, like, overall.
That's wild. So if you were gonna revamp the U.S. educational system to produce more kids who are created to be more authentic to their natural skill sets or abilities, how would you do it?
Well, I think we're about to get rid of the Department of Education. That sounds like that's happening. So we'd start there. I would increase the amount of physical activity that people do by a long shot. These kids are pansies now. If you look at the education or the athletic ability of people in school from 40 or 50 years ago, and then you look at what we have now, it's insane. The how much more fit and in shape people were. We changed the food.
Yep.
I think the social media accounts they have their place, but also they're not really helping any of these kids. And I would make them learn how to do stuff that's, make them learn skills, not reciting nonsense.
Developing skills at a young age builds confidence too.
So they say the first 5 years, or really the first 3 or 4 years of a kid's life, you need to be doing tons of tasks. Like, you need to teach them how to load the dishwasher when they're 2 and 3, and they need to do this and they need to do that. And it's the kids that grow up around that do chores that will be more successful later on. I didn't do a lot of chores, but I believe that, again, you don't want to raise these useless kids. You see these, a lot of these wealthy kids that grew up with everything, and then they don't know how to do anything, and they're not happy. And it's, I just think that making sure that there's lots of curiosity. And once a kid finds something that's interesting to them, put more attention on that. Because I knew I wasn't going to be a mathematician, so I just didn't care if I got the answers right. But like a lot of parents had pressured that kid, and they'd go and like, we need to tutor you, and we need to go to Kuman so we can learn the Pythagorean theorem. And it's like, well, maybe he's just not going to be a math kid, and maybe we should do sales. Like, I want my kids to have businesses at like 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and contribute to financial accounts over time and teach them investing and compounding and stuff like that, because they'll be so far ahead of everybody that's around them.
It's applicable use of math versus Calc 2 and 3, which is not daily applicable. So how can people start identifying what's truly unique about themselves, and how do they incorporate that into their career to create a competitive advantage the way you have?
All right, here's an example. I use a helicopter and motorcycles to sell houses. If I was a scratch golfer, I would try to sell the houses on the golf courses. I would join a country club. I would golf a different course multiple times a week with strangers. I would bring cigars, Gatorade, candy bars, marketing materials for my real estate services. And these people are stuck interviewing you for 4 hours. So if you were like a scratch golfer, just like people invite me on snowboard trips because I'm good at it, if I was really good at golf, everybody wants to play with the guy that's really good, right? Now that guy that's really good, you're playing with him and you're like, hey, you live on a golf course? No, why don't you? You like golf. Why don't I be the golf realtor? And so it's like, if I did yoga, I would offer a free yoga class in the park, and I'd be around tons of people that like yoga, and we'd make smoothies, and we would read books on stretching and breath work, and and then my marketing materials right there in front of them. So whatever your hobby is can also be it's like, if you really like, you're selling real estate and you love baking cakes, who wouldn't like one of these really cool custom cakes for a closing gift that you'd spend 4 or 5 hours on and get like 50 referrals off of?
It's a great approach. So essentially find things you're passionate about and then find a way to integrate those into your business or profit off of them. It's good philosophy. Is there any belief or mindset that you held early in your career that you've completely outgrown, or that you intentionally changed? Or were there any beliefs or mindsets you feel like your parents put upon you that maybe, or other people put upon you that weren't true or authentic, and you had to change them or reframe your mindset?
I always tried stuff to figure out what worked and didn't work. And the stuff that worked, I kept doing that. The stuff that didn't, cut it a lot quicker. So I don't know if that's the answer to that question, but.
So maybe with you growing up in the environment you didn't have a lot of limiting beliefs that you necessarily needed to outgrow, or mindsets that were faultier or negative.
When I was younger, would I have thought that I could be like somewhat financially successful by this age, I would not have thought it would have happened as quickly. I didn't think I was this super sharp, smart kid based on like curriculum. But I don't know. It's like I figured out a lot of other stuff that I wanted to do, and then it's just like I met a lot of goals that weren't scholarly. And then I think when I got into real estate, you just start thinking, why do people buy houses? When do they buy houses? Where do you think they find the people that they want to buy houses from? And I think maybe a lot of people don't think about that. And that's so important. I think most real estate agents go from layup deal to layup deal. They don't follow up with people, and they do an average of 6 transactions a year. And, you see people that they can't even juggle two clients at a time. And they're just focusing on these little things. It's like, you get a new customer, get another customer, follow up with an old customer. I don't know. Again, this isn't really answering your question.
That's all right.
These are my tangents. We're doing the weave.
That's right. All right. So back to living an authentic lifestyle. If authenticity were a skill to be practiced, what would be the first step in mastering it?
Yeah. I mean, I think you got to get rid of a lot of the fear of what people think, and I don't know if it's a muscle that you grow, but I just never really cared. So it's like I do see some people that are nervous to say things around people because what the fallout is, but it's like going back to the French fry thing. Could you go and do that? If you want to find out if you can be authentic, go try and eat sauce with a stranger's plate. I don't know. That's not probably a great answer to that question, but
All right. 4 more rapid fire ones, and I think we're going to wrap up.
all right.
What's the most exhilarating moment you've ever had, either in extreme sports or business?
There's there was a jump I hit on my snowboard, and it was 75 feet, and I did a backflip over it, and it was so scary. And when I go and do these sports, I try to scare myself a little bit each time. Like at my age, I have this goal that I want to be able to do backflips on my snowboard until I'm into my 50s and 60s. So I have to go and do it when I go do it, because each year you get older and you get old. It's harder. And I want to keep scaring myself a little bit. But there was just a couple of things that I've maybe jumped that were very exhilarating, because there's no thrill or drug like that moment when you drop in and you see this wall. And again, this, whether it's on a wakeboard or a snowboard or motorcycle or whatever, there's something that you can do that's going to push it and scare you. I really wanted to hit 75 miles an hour on my snowboard, and I did, because I was like, I want to go highway speeds on this
75 miles an hour on a snowboard.
Yeah. And so at Beaver Creek, I went there in the morning. They have a couple top to bottom runs that are just really well groomed and not a lot of turns in them. And, you can't have these big rollers that you'll knuckle and go, because you can fly 100 feet if you don't do it. Like if you're not expecting it.
How'd you monitor your speed?
I had an app. And I just kept, I did it 2 attempts top to bottom, as as fast as I possibly could. And when I got done, I was shaking. And that, I don't think I'll ever be able to get it to go that fast again, because it was just perfect conditions, perfect day. And I was just out there.
You hit 75 miles an hour.
I hit 75. It's on my app. I was just in Aspen last weekend. I got 58, but it was you have to have the right run for it. But that was exhilarating. I was
75-foot jump's huge.
It was super scary.
And you did a backflip. That's monstrous. Yeah,
I did. I actually drank 2 tequila shots before.
You landed it?
Yeah. But it's easy to do on a little one, but those big ones, if you mistime the speed, if you know the speed of every jump, it's not that hard to hit them. But later in that day, the sun changes the speed of the snow, and I did not make it over. And I was in the air. I thought I broke both of my legs before hitting the ground. And it was they almost felt like they crunched, but they didn't. And it was super scary. So yeah, it's if you have the speed, it's not that big of a deal. But I hit that same jump later on, right before my trip. I was like, oh, I want to go hit it one last time. And it was the sun went down, or maybe whatever.
Did you get hurt the last time you hit it?
I didn't. I mean, it hurt, but I didn't get hurt. Right. I'll show you a picture of that one.
We'll have to get some content too and edit in visuals on your videos and stuff like that into the editing on this. So maybe we can get a couple of photos of that, put it in the video. What's one lesson that aviation taught you that you still apply daily, or to the business world or another?
To not get complacent. So you look at that helicopter crash that just happened in DC, and it's very easy to get comfortable up there and lose focus, so you have checklists and you have stuff that you do every time in pre-flight inspections. And, you can get away with things multiple times before something bad happens. And you have to nip that in the butt when you start feeling complacent on not doing your pre-flight, not doing your pre-landing checks. You look at a pilot that lands with the geared up. That happens. And if they did their pre-landing checks, they would be there. And you try to focusing on not getting complacent in business and life. Anytime I get myself in a sales slump, let's call it, I just kind of go back to the basics of the stuff that works. And I just start calling everybody while I'm driving and having conversations with them. And, then we start doing open houses, and then we start doing mailers, and then we start doing more consistent posting. And it's if I ever get slow, I will immediately be able to fill that back up if I get complacent, because you just have to go back to the basics.
So let's talk about the DC thing, because that's recent. It just happened in the last week or so. You being an aviation expert, flying helicopters for years, what is your take on that? Like, how does something like that happen? It sounds like the helicopter's flying substantially higher than they're supposed to be. From the stuff you've looked at, like, what do you think's going on?
Well, I just think it was wrong place, wrong time, total freak accident. My dog's in here, so he's getting a little whiny. It's okay, buddy.
We're almost done.
Come here. I scratch his ear, so it'll be fine. So as far as that accident, couple things. The runway that they were using that day is one that's less common for wind for there. It's not the best approach. They run, because it's DC, there's helicopters for VIPs that fly up and down this river all the time. And I guess there's been a lot of close calls right there. It was a training flight, and, the tower had made sure that the people had saw the plane. They verbally confirmed it with them twice, and they weren't looking at the same plane as the one they hit. Now, at night, you get a lot of visual things that get weird. So first off, when I'm flying at night, you naturally tend to fly higher because you feel like you're lower. So they were supposed to be flying at 235 feet, which is really low for a helicopter. We should always be 500 feet plus. But over water, it's no big deal because there's nothing that you're going to crash into on the ground that would cause damage to people or property. But so they were off by 100 feet. They were looking at the wrong plane, and they verbally said that they saw it, and they were high. And that's probably getting complacent. Now, there's a thing about aviation accidents around the 500-hour mark. And there's different things that affect different people at different time frames. But it's kind of a dangerous spot because you're just deadly enough and good at it to get comfortable and stop looking out. You should be spending 90% of your time looking out the window and less than 10% of the time looking at the instruments. They had 3 people on board. You should have your passengers briefed to look out for other aircrafts, birds, wires, antennas. In your pre-flight, you should be telling your passengers, hey, we got 4 sets of eyes on board today. If you guys see another plane, don't assume that I see it. Feel free to call it out. If it looks like we're going to hit something, you're not going to hurt my feelings if you tell me. These are things that are part of my safety briefing that we do with people. So I don't know. Goes back to complacency.
That's awesome. Great take. What's a belief that you hold that most people would disagree with?
Yeah, which one do we pick? Oh, I don't know. Man, let me think. There's probably a really good answer to this.
What's a belief you hold that most people would disagree with?
I mean, we could go really deep on conspiracy stuff.
Maybe let's stick it to a belief that would be applicable to life, or
I don't know. Trust no one. Go verify stuff for yourself. Don't just trust what everybody tells you. Go check. I mean, it's not really a belief that.
Don't trust. Verify is a belief. That's
yeah,
kind of a belief.
But I mean, in my life, a lot of the stuff around healthcare, I think that just the mainstream versions of that are so far off of what is actually healthy, and
especially in America, right? Because it's all built on profit.
How about let food be your medicine and medicine be your food? That's from Thomas Edison.
Ooh, let food be your medicine, let medicine be your food, you said?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a good quote.
I think he also said the doctor of the future will, be focused more on diet, nutrition, exercise than let's pump people filled with pharmaceuticals.
At the end of the day, when all the sales, the marketing, the accolades are stripped away, what's left that truly defines Dylan.tent?
I don't know. I don't care about trophies. I would say when I first started in real estate, you have a deal sheet and you wanted to be at the bottom of the deal sheet because if you sold the biggest house, right, you were on the scoreboard. And I haven't even looked at that in at all. I don't care. It's at first I cared about it. Now I don't. I don't know. If you took it away, I don't know. I just want to go enjoy my time and do the fun things that I like to do. And I don't know.
So you just want to live life
authentically.
authentically.
I want to live and have fun and, not get, I mean, like too caught up over the plaques and the ribbons and the who did the most sales. I mean, that stuff's important to me because I'm competitive, but also it's like if I had more fun, like if I did less in sales than somebody, but I had 10 times the fun, people are like, when are you going to start a team? I'm like, never. I'm like, I don't want to have to do this with 5 other people and babysit them. Like, I want to do what I'm doing and then go and do something fun and not, have all these other things. So, like, there's people that sell more than me, but they like to go to maybe, a few levels higher. You have to put in 7 times more work. It's like, no, thanks.
And sacrificing all your personal fun.
Yeah.
All right. So,
well, it's like I get these marketing calls from people that were like, "Oh, we can get you 2 to 3 qualified leads a week. Do you want that in your business?" And I'm like, I sold 50 houses last year. I don't think I could sell 52. Like I had no, I don't know where I'd fit it more. They're like, you could hire a team. I'm like, nope, stop. So they're like, we can get you all this business. I'm like, what if I don't want it? Like, yeah, obviously I want to grow, but I'd like rather grow, be pick and choose, pick the right customers, fire the bad ones, you say, and focus on what you want to do. But it's another funny thing that people always say, and this is kind of people are like, oh, why do you want to get into real estate? And then people are like, oh, I just like helping people. If people ask me, I'm like, I wanted to make a lot of money, and they're like, don't you want to help people? I'm like, I like it. That's the bonus, but the money is why I'm there. I do want people to enjoy working with me. I want them to find a right house, but ultimately I want the cash because I want to do fun stuff with it.
I will say, brother, like you definitely inspire me. I feel like I work all the time and you inspire me to want to have like a more fun life and get back to a little more balance with more adventure and like.
Did you just spend like a month in Nicaragua?
I spent like 10 days in Nicaragua.
Okay.
It was in December. No, nothing's happened in December. All right.
I agree. I know. It's like I can do whatever I want from like Thanksgiving to like January 15th. And then after that, it's crazy.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right. So last thing, man, what advice do you have for this next generation as far as counsel on them living authentic lives?
Don't be a pussy.
All right. There we go. Let's summarize it in a very few words.
Yeah. That's funny.
All right, brother. Thanks for coming in, man. I appreciate it. It was a great conversation.
I enjoyed
Appreciate your life, man. Respect you very
Thank
much.
you.
And it was fun. We'll have to go snowboarding sometime. I'll have to get a little
I would
better.
love
though.
that.